Stop scrolling. Yes, you. This isn't just another video on your feed. This is a divine appointment. You didn't stumble here by chance, you were summoned. Lean in because what I'm about to say isn't meant for everyone. It's meant for the chosen one. For the soul who's been wandering with questions. For the heart that's felt a silent pull, knowing deep down, there's more to my story than this. Let me ask you, have you ever felt like you were waiting for something but you couldn't explain what? Like life was holding its breath around you, as if heaven itself was watching, waiting for you to realize who you really are. That's because this message was written across eternity just for you. The moment you clicked play, something shifted. In the spiritual realm, doors began to unlock, because God doesn't waste moments like this. You see, when God wants to speak to his chosen ones, he doesn't always send thunder or angels in the sky. Sometimes he sends a whisper through something as simple as a video. But here's the thing about sacred messages. They're not meant to be shared loosely. They're meant to be guarded. That's why I'm telling you now, when you finish hearing this truth, delete this video. Not because it's dangerous, but because it's powerful. Because some revelations are so holy, they're meant to be hidden in your heart, not replayed for the world. Now, before we go any further, if your spirit is already stirring, if something deep inside is saying, "This is for me," I need you to do 3 things. Like this video, because energy flows where intention goes, subscribe. Join a community of chosen souls walking in purpose. And comment 777, the number of divine completion signaling to heaven that you're ready to receive what's coming. Because trust me, by the time we reach the end of this message, you won't just be inspired, you'll be activated. So stay with me, don't click away, because what you're about to hear could be the moment everything changes. Now, let's uncover why God has left you this message right now. And remember, when it's done, guard it, protect it, delete it. This is your calling. Chosen one. Let's begin. Section 1. The identity you forgot you are chosen. Let me ask you something. Have you ever felt like you were different but couldn't explain why? Not better, not superior, just set apart. Since you were young, there's been a quiet awareness deep in your soul, like you were walking a path no one else could see. A sense that while others lived on the surface, you were born for something deeper. But life has a way of trying to bury that truth. You were told to blend in, to be realistic, to stop dreaming so big. And over time, those whispers from the world, they started to sound louder than the whisper of God in your spirit. But here's the truth. No one ever told you. You didn't come here to fit into their mold. You came here because God chose you before the foundation of the world. Yes, you. Not the person you pretend to be. Not the version of you that plays small to make others comfortable. The real you. The one heaven recognizes even when earth overlooks you. Let that sink in for a moment. You are a chosen one, not because you earned it, not because you're perfect, but because God saw something in you. A heart that could carry his light in a world drowning in shadows. Now you might be thinking, if I'm chosen, why has my life been filled with so much struggle? That's a fair question. And here's the divine answer. Because those who are chosen are also refined. See, God doesn't place his greatest assignments in untested hands. The battles you've faced weren't signs of abandonment. They were signs of preparation. Every betrayal, every setback, every night you cried out, wondering if anyone saw your pain, heaven was watching. Because diamonds aren't formed in comfort, they're formed under pressure. Let me ask you, how many times have you survived things that should have broken you? How often did you rise when no one expected you to? And how many moments did you feel something pulling you forward, even when you had every reason to give up? That's not coincidence. That's the mark of the chosen. The world mistook your humility for weakness, but God saw a warrior in disguise. You were never meant to walk the easy road. You were meant to walk the anointed one. Because those who carry divine purpose first carry divine weight. And here's what most people won't tell you. Being chosen doesn't come with applause. It comes with isolation. It comes with being misunderstood. It comes with seasons where God hides you so He can build you in silence. But today, this message is your confirmation that the hiding season is ending. God is calling you to remember who you are, not who life told you to be, not who fear shaped you into, but who He declared you to be before anyone had an opinion about your worth. You are a vessel of glory, a light bearer, a carrier of breakthrough. Not just for yourself, but for everyone connected to your destiny. Think about it. How many lives could shift just because you finally stepped into your true identity? What if embracing the fact that you're chosen is the very key that unlocks not only your abundance, but the healing freedom and elevation of others? See, chosen ones don't chase spotlight, they become the light. And that's exactly what the enemy has tried to dim in you for years. Because if you ever fully realized who you are, if you ever truly walked in that authority, there's nothing in hell that could stop the impact you'd make. So here's your wake-up call. This isn't about ego, it's about alignment. God didn't call you chosen so you could survive life. He called you chosen so you could transform it. But transformation starts with remembrance. Remember who you are, a child of the King, an heir to promises that no man can revoke, a soul crafted for such a time as this. The world may have labeled you by your past, but heaven calls you by your purpose. And today, that purpose is knocking. So I'll leave you with this question. Are you ready to stop dimming your light just to make others feel comfortable in the dark? Or will you finally rise as the chosen one God has always known you to be? Stay with me, because in the next part, we're going to uncover why God waited until now to remind you of who you are. This isn't just revelation. It's the beginning of your activation. Section 2. Why God waited until now. Have you ever asked yourself, why now? Why is it, after all these years of struggle, waiting, and silence, this message is reaching you today? Why didn't God reveal this sooner? Why did He let you walk through seasons where you felt forgotten, invisible, wondering if the promises were ever meant for you? Let me give you a truth that most overlook. God's timing is never late, but it's also never rushed. See, when you're chosen, the delay you feel isn't denial, it's design. The reason you're hearing this message now is because heaven knows something you don't. You're finally in the place where you can carry what's coming. Think about it. If God had released the blessings you prayed for 5 years ago, would you have been ready for them? Would you have had the wisdom, the strength, the discernment to sustain it? Or would the very thing you begged for have crushed you under the weight of unprepared hands? Here's the hard truth. Many avoid God loves you too much to give you something too soon. Because early success without spiritual maturity isn't a blessing. It's a burden disguised. So why now? Because now you've been refined. Those nights you cried out in frustration, they weren't wasted. Those doors that slammed in your face, they were divine protection, not rejection. You see, God wasn't just preparing the blessing for you, He was preparing you for the blessing. Let me ask you something personal. How many times did you think God was silent, when in reality He was working behind the scenes, shifting things in your favor even when you couldn't see it? Sometimes heaven's greatest work happens in what feels like earthly stillness. You weren't waiting because you were forgotten. You were waiting because you were being fortified. Look at Joseph. Dreamed of greatness but thrown into a pit, sold into slavery, forgotten in prison. For 13 years, he lived in obscurity. But when God said, now Joseph didn't just walk into favor, he walked into a position of power that saved nations. What if your story is following that same divine blueprint? What if everything that felt like delay was actually alignment in disguise? You see, the reason this message has come to you today is because your spirit is finally calibrated to receive and protect what God is about to release. It's no longer about chasing blessings. It's about holding them with purpose. And here's something you need to hear clearly. Elevation, without preparation, is dangerous. That's why God took His time with you. Not because you were unworthy, but because you were destined for more than quick wins. Let me give you another perspective. Have you noticed how people who rise too fast without foundation often fall just as quickly? But God wasn't interested in a temporary rise for you. He's building something eternal. The kind of abundance that doesn't just touch your life, but echoes through generations. And that kind of legacy takes time. So here's the question that matters now. Are you ready to stop questioning the wait and start recognizing that the wait was the making of you? Because today isn't random. Today is a spiritual activation point. The reason this divine message reached you now is because heaven has declared it's time. Time for the doors to open. Time for the favor to flow. Time for you to step into what was always yours. But now you're finally ready to carry it. But hear me, chosen one. With this timing comes responsibility. This isn't just about receiving blessings. It's about protecting them. It's about walking in alignment so that what God gives you doesn't get lost to distraction, fear, or sabotage. Remember this. When God moves, the enemy notices. And the moment you step into your appointed season, distractions will come dressed as opportunities. Doubts will whisper louder than before. But now you know better. Now you're equipped. Because the waiting season wasn't passive. It was your training ground. You learned resilience. You gained discernment. You discovered that even in silence, God was still faithful. So as you stand on the threshold of this next chapter, don't carry bitterness from the delay. Carry wisdom from the preparation. I want you to declare this right now. Say it out loud, wherever you are. I was not delayed. I was developed. And now I step into God's perfect timing with confidence. Because when heaven says now, no force on earth can say wait. This is your moment. This is why God waited. So let me ask you, are you ready to walk through the door that all of your waiting was preparing you for? If your answer is yes, comment 777 below. Not as a routine gesture, but as a prophetic act, signaling to heaven that you recognize the season has shifted. Stay with me, chosen one, because in the next section, we're going to expose the spiritual resistance that tries to block every chosen soul right before their breakthrough. You've waited long enough. Now it's time to fight with understanding. Let's keep going. Section 3. The battle. You don't see spiritual resistance before breakthrough. Chosen one, have you noticed that right when things are about to shift in your favor, all chaos seems to break loose? You start to feel heavier. Doubt creeps in, where confidence once stood. Old fears resurface. Unexpected setbacks hit you from every angle. And you wonder, why is everything getting harder just when I thought I was close to something good? Let me reveal a truth many overlook. The greatest battles always come before the greatest breakthroughs. It's not coincidence, it's spiritual resistance. See the moment heaven releases a word over your life. Hell takes notice. You're not being attacked because you're weak. You're being attacked because you're dangerous to the kingdom of darkness. Let that sink in. The enemy doesn't waste energy on people going nowhere, but when a chosen one starts to awaken, when you begin to step into alignment with God's plan, that's when resistance intensifies. Because the enemy knows something you might not fully grasp yet. If you ever realize who you are, if you ever walk boldly in your calling, there's nothing he can do to stop the impact you'll make. So what does he do instead? He distracts. He deceives. He discourages. He whispers lies like, "You're not ready. This blessing isn't for you. If God really chose you, why are you struggling?" Sound familiar? Let me ask you, how many times have you felt on the verge of something big only to be blindsided by fear, confusion, or sudden obstacles? That's not just life happening. That's warfare. See, spiritual resistance isn't about stopping your destiny because the enemy can't cancel what God has ordained, but he can try to convince you to walk away from it. He can't shut the door God opened, but he'll do everything to make you doubt whether you should walk through it. Here's where most people fall. They mistake resistance for a sign to retreat, when in reality resistance is often the clearest indicator that you're standing right at the edge of breakthrough. Look at Moses. God called him to lead a nation out of bondage, but Pharaoh didn't let go easily. The more Moses obeyed God, the harder Pharaoh pushed back. Why? Because deliverance was near. Or think about Jesus. Right after his baptism, his divine affirmation, he was led into the wilderness to be tempted. Because before every public victory, there's a private battle. So what does that mean for you, chosen one? It means the pressure you're feeling isn't proof that you're failing. It's proof that you're close. The enemy wouldn't be fighting you this hard if there wasn't something worth protecting on the other side. Let me give you a new perspective. What if the chaos surrounding you right now is actually confirmation that heaven has already released your blessing and hell is scrambling to block it? Think about that. You're not under attack because you're weak. You're under attack because you're carrying something powerful. So how do you win a battle you can't see? You fight it in the Spirit, not by striving, but by standing. The Bible says in Ephesians 6:13, "Therefore put on the full armor of God, so that when the day of evil comes, you may be able to stand your ground." Notice it doesn't say run, it says stand. Because sometimes victory isn't about doing more, it's about refusing to give up ground when resistance hits. Let me ask you, how many times have you been tempted to quit right before your breakthrough arrived? How often did you walk away thinking God was silent, when in reality the enemy was just turning up the volume of fear to drown out heaven's whisper of keep going? Here's what you need to remember. The enemy has no new tricks, just recycled lies. He knows if he can get you to doubt your identity, you'll disqualify yourself in your own mind even when God has already qualified you. But today you're seeing the game for what it is. Every obstacle, every delay, every voice of doubt. It's all a strategy to shake your faith right before the promise manifests. So now that you recognize the resistance, what's your response? You stand firm. You speak God's truth, louder than the lies you remind yourself daily. I am chosen. I am equipped. My breakthrough is already in motion. Because faith isn't just believing when it's easy, it's declaring victory when everything around you says otherwise. I want you to hear this clearly. The fact that you're still standing after everything you've faced, that's already a sign of your strength. But now it's time to shift from surviving to claiming what's yours. The resistance you feel isn't a wall, it's a threshold. Cross it. And every time fear tries to creep in, remember what James 4:7 says, "Resist the devil and he will flee from you." You don't have to fight for what God has already promised. You just have to refuse to surrender it. So, chosen one, let me ask you, are you going to let a temporary battle make you forget your eternal calling? Or will you rise even in the face of resistance and declare that no force in heaven or earth can block what God has ordained? Stay with me, because in the next section, we're going to unlock the power of your words and how what you speak in this season can either open the floodgates of abundance or delay what's already yours. It's time to speak like the chosen one you are. Let's continue. Section 4. The power of daily declarations. Speak like the chosen one you are. Chosen one. There's a force you've been carrying your entire life. One so powerful it can either unlock heaven's blessings or silently sabotage your destiny. That force is your voice. Not just the words you speak casually, but the declarations you make about yourself, your future, and your faith. You see, in the spiritual realm, words aren't just sounds, they're commands. their creative power in motion. The Bible doesn't exaggerate when it says life and death are in the power of the tongue. Proverbs 18:21. Every time you open your mouth, you're either building or breaking. Let me ask you something. When was the last time you truly listened to the words you speak over your life when no one else is around? Not the polite conversations, not the motivational talk you give others, but those quiet moments when doubt creeps in. Do you say, "I'll never get through this. Maybe I'm not meant for more. Nothing ever works out for me"? Because whether you realize it or not, those words don't just vanish into thin air. They plant seeds. Seeds that shape your mindset, your actions, and ultimately, your reality. Here's a truth many overlook. The enemy doesn't need to curse you if he can convince you to curse yourself. If he can get you to speak defeat, he knows you'll start living beneath your calling without him lifting another finger. But here's the good news. That same tongue, that same voice that may have spoken fear in the past, can be transformed into your greatest weapon. Because when a chosen one starts declaring God's truth daily, the atmosphere around them begins to shift. Mountains move, doors open, hearts strengthen, not because of wishful thinking, but because heaven responds to faith-filled words. Remember, God spoke the universe into existence. He didn't build it with his hands. He released it with his voice. And you created in his image carry that same creative authority. Let that sink in. When you declare, "I am chosen," I am walking in divine abundance. My purpose is unfolding. You're not just encouraging yourself, you're issuing a spiritual decree. You're aligning your reality with heaven's blueprint. But here's where many fall short. They speak life once and expect instant results. When they don't see immediate change, they revert back to old patterns. Complaining, doubting, shrinking. But declarations aren't magic spells. They're a daily discipline. Think of them as spiritual nutrition. You wouldn't eat one healthy meal and expect lifelong health. In the same way, you don't speak truth once and expect your entire destiny to unfold overnight. It's the consistency of your words that fortifies your faith and accelerates manifestation. Let me ask you, if I could replay every word you spoke over the last week, would your declaration sound like someone expecting God's promises or someone bracing for disappointment? Because your words reveal where your faith truly resides. And before abundance flows in your life, it must first flow through your language. Look at the story of Joshua. God promised him the victory. But what was the instruction? For 6 days march around the walls of Jericho in silence. And on the 7th day, shout. That final declaration wasn't random. It was strategic. Because when Joshua and his people released their unified voice, the impossible happened. The walls collapsed. What walls in your life are still standing because you've been silent? What breakthroughs have been delayed because you've allowed negative words to reinforce barriers instead of tearing them down? Chosen one, it's time to reclaim the power of your voice. It's time to wake up each morning and speak like someone who knows they're chosen, even when you don't feel it, especially when you don't see it. Because declarations aren't based on emotions, they're based on truth. And God's truth doesn't change just because your circumstances look difficult. Here's a practice I want you to start. Every day before the world's noise gets to you, declare these words. I am a chosen one. I walk in divine favor. Abundance flows to me and through me. No weapon formed against me shall prosper. I am aligned with God's timing, and every promise over my life is unfolding now. Say it, even if your bank account says otherwise. Say it when fear tries to grip your heart. Say it when nothing around you feels like it's changing. Because in the spiritual realm, every declaration is a seed, and seeds don't sprout the moment they touch the soil, but they're working beneath the surface. Let me remind you, the enemy isn't afraid of a believer who wishes for blessings. He's terrified of a chosen one who speaks with authority, because that's when things begin to move. So from this day forward, guard your words like treasure. Refuse to speak defeat. Refuse to agree with fear. And when doubt whispers, answer it out loud with declarations that remind both heaven and hell exactly who you are. In the next section, we'll dive deeper into what this abundance is really about. Because it's not just about receiving wealth, it's about understanding the purpose behind it. God isn't just blessing you for comfort. He's positioning you for impact. Stay with me. Chosen one. The revelation gets deeper from here. Section 5. Abundance with purpose. It's bigger than money. Chosen one. Let's get something clear. God didn't call you just to get rich. He called you to be entrusted. There's a difference. See, in a world obsessed with chasing wealth for status, comfort, or validation, you were never meant to run that race. You were designed for something far greater. Purpose-driven abundance. Because true prosperity isn't about what sits in your bank account. It's about what flows through you. Let me ask you, if God released every blessing you've been praying for, would you know why you received it? Would it end with you? Or would it begin a ripple effect that touches lives beyond your own? You see, many people ask God for overflow, but they never ask Him for the mission behind it. And that's where chosen ones stand apart. You weren't selected to hoard blessings. You were chosen to channel them, because heaven's resources always follow heaven's assignments. Think about this. If God is the source of limitless abundance, why doesn't everyone walk in it? It's not because He's withholding out of cruelty. It's because He's strategic. God doesn't pour into vessels that would use divine provision to fuel ego or feed fear. He pours into those who understand that abundance is a tool, not a trophy. Look at Solomon. When God offered him anything, he didn't ask for riches. He asked for wisdom. And because his heart was aligned with purpose, God gave him both wisdom and wealth beyond measure. Why? Because God knew Solomon wouldn't let the blessing replace the mission. Let me challenge you. Have you aligned your heart the same way? Or have you unintentionally made prosperity the goal instead of the fuel for your divine calling? Chosen one, you must understand, God's blessings come with assignments attached. When He elevates you financially, it's because there's a community you're called to uplift. When He expands your influence, it's because there's a message you're meant to carry. And when He releases abundance into your hands, it's because He trusts you'll build, not just indulge. Here's a provocative question. If God gave you $1 million today, whose life besides your own would be better tomorrow, would you see that wealth as a chance to serve, or simply as a long-awaited reward for your struggle? Because chosen ones don't just pray for increase, they pray for instruction. They ask, Lord, what is this provision meant to accomplish through me? Let me share something personal with you. Many people delay their blessings because they're asking for wealth without offering purpose alignment. They want the overflow, but they haven't shown God they understand the why behind it. But when you shift your mindset, when you start praying, God, position me to fund visions, to heal, to restore, to create spaces where your light shines. Doors open that no man can shut. Because now you're not chasing money. You're walking in divine stewardship, and that's when heaven releases more than you asked for. Let me give you a different lens. Abundance isn't measured by how much you can keep. It's measured by how much you're trusted to release without fear of lack. True prosperity is walking in such alignment with God that you know whatever flows out of your hands will return, multiplied because you're operating under kingdom principles, not worldly greed. Look at the story of the widow in 1 Kings 17. She had nothing but a handful of flour and a little oil. But when she gave to Elijah, as God instructed her, supply never ran out. That's the power of purpose-driven giving. When you trust God enough to use your last for His mission, He turns it into overflow. So, chosen one, this message isn't just about preparing you to receive abundance, it's about preparing you to carry it well. Because wealth without vision is a fast road to emptiness. But wealth with divine purpose, that's legacy, that's impact. That's when your name becomes attached to miracles you didn't even know you could fund. Let me ask you, what vision has God placed in your heart that requires more than just faith, but also resources? Maybe it's to build, maybe it's to rescue, to teach, to heal, to create opportunities where none existed before. That's why He's positioning you for prosperity. Not just so you can breathe easier, but so others can breathe because of you. Chosen ones are kingdom financiers. They're conduits of blessings, not cul-de-sacs where blessings stop. So today, shift your prayer. Stop asking, God, when will you bless me? And start asking, God, prepare me to handle what you're about to release. Because when heaven sees that you value purpose over possession, that's when the floodgates open. In the next section, we'll explore how to trust God's process, even when you can't see the full picture. Because receiving the blessing is one thing, but walking in faithful surrender is what sustains it. Stay with me. You're not just being prepared for prosperity, you're being prepared for partnership with heaven. Let's continue. Section 6. Trusting the invisible faith in action. Chosen one. Let's be honest. Trusting what you can't see isn't easy. We live in a world that demands proof before belief. A world that says, I'll trust it when I see it. But heaven's language speaks differently. God says, believe it, and then you'll see it. That's the tension every chosen soul must walk through. The space where faith becomes more than a word. It becomes a lifestyle. Let me ask you, how many times have you felt like God gave you a promise but no roadmap? Like He whispered destiny into your heart, but left out the details of how it would all unfold? If you've felt that you're exactly where you're supposed to be, because chosen ones aren't called to walk by sight. They're called to trust the invisible. Look at Abraham. God told him, leave your country, your people, your father's household, and go to the land I will show you. Genesis 12:1. No GPS, no blueprint, just a promise and a step. Imagine that leaving everything familiar, stepping into the unknown with nothing but faith in a voice you can't explain to anyone else. Sound familiar? Because that's what God often does with those He chooses. He gives you just enough light for the next step, not the whole journey. Why? Because if you saw the full picture, you'd try to control it. You'd lean on strategy instead of surrender. But God doesn't need your plan. He needs your trust. Here's a question that cuts deep. Do you trust God's timing, or are you frustrated because He hasn't moved according to your timeline? Because faith isn't just believing that God can do it. It's trusting that He knows when to do it. And that trust is where most people waver. Chosen one understand this. Delays are not denials. Silence is not absence. When God feels distant, He's often the closest watching to see if you'll keep walking, even when the path disappears beneath your feet. Let's talk about faith in action. Because faith isn't passive. It's not sitting still, waiting for lightning to strike. Faith is movement. It's waking up every day, acting like the promise is already in motion, even when nothing around you has changed. Noah built the ark before a single drop of rain fell. David trained with a sling before he ever faced Goliath. The woman with the issue of blood pushed through the crowd before she ever touched Jesus' robe. What does that tell you? Faith doesn't wait for confirmation. Faith is the confirmation. Let me ask you, are you living like someone who's already received the promise? Or are you hesitating, waiting for signs before you commit to belief? Because chosen ones move differently. They understand that heaven responds when you act in alignment, not when you demand reassurance. Here's something God taught me. Surrender isn't weakness. It's the highest form of strength. When you say, God, I don't need to see the full picture. I trust you with every unseen detail. You're stepping into a realm where miracles happen. because that's when God knows you won't try to force doors open. You'll wait for Him to open the right ones. And when He does, no man, no system, no enemy can shut what He ordains. But here's the challenge. Can you stay faithful when it feels like nothing is happening? Can you keep building, believing, declaring, when everyone around you questions your sanity? That's where chosen ones are refined, in the quiet seasons where faith is your only currency. Let me remind you, God isn't slow, He's precise. Every delay is alignment. Every closed door is redirection. Every silent moment is preparation. Think about Joseph again. In the prison forgotten by man, but never forgotten by God. At the appointed time, in a single day, he went from prisoner to ruler. What if you're one obedient step away from that kind of shift? What if the very thing you've been waiting for has been waiting on your trust to reach maturity? Chosen one, it's time to release the anxiety that comes from needing to know how and when. God's job is the outcome. Your job is obedience. Walk when He says walk. Wait when He says wait. Speak when He says speak. And trust that even when you see nothing, He's orchestrating everything. Let me give you a declaration for this season. I trust God's process even when I can't see progress. I move by faith, not by sight. And I know that what's mine is already on its way. Say that every time doubt tries to creep in, because faith isn't just believing for something, it's believing through the uncertainty. In the next section, we'll talk about what it truly means to leave a legacy as a chosen one. Because this journey isn't just about trusting for yourself. It's about becoming a light for generations to come. Stay with me. You're not just walking by faith. You're paving a path for others to follow. Let's continue. Section 7. The legacy of a chosen one beyond you. Chosen one. By now you understand this calling on your life. It was never just about you. Yes, God promised you abundance. Yes, He's opening doors no man can shut. But what heaven releases into your hands was always meant to flow beyond you. You see, when God chooses someone, He's thinking in generations, not moments. Let me ask you, when you picture your future, do you only see comfort for yourself? Or do you see a ripple effect? A legacy that transforms lives long after you're gone? Because true elevation isn't measured by how high you climb. It's measured by how many people find their wings because you rose. Think about Abraham. God didn't just tell him, "I will bless you." God said, "Through you all nations on earth will be blessed." Genesis 12:3. That's legacy. That's the weight and the honor of being chosen. It's not about fleeting success. It's about building something eternal. Chosen one. The blessings coming your way aren't just answers to your prayers. They're answers to the prayers of those who will come after you. Let that settle in your spirit. Every breakthrough you fight for, every mindset you shift, every chain you break, you're not just doing it for yourself. You're doing it for the people who will walk in freedom, because you refused to quit. Here's a question only a true chosen one will understand. Are you willing to carry blessings with responsibility? Are you prepared to steward abundance, knowing that your life will become a blueprint for those who never believed it was possible? Because whether you realize it or not, someone is watching you. Someone is waiting to see if you'll rise, because your victory will give them permission to believe in their own. This is where many miss the mark. They pray for prosperity, but they forget to pray for vision. They ask for overflow, but never ask, "Lord, who is this meant to impact?" But you're different. You were chosen not just to receive, but to redefine what's possible for your family, your community, your generation. Look at David, a shepherd boy overlooked by everyone. But when God elevated him, David didn't just secure his own future. He established a kingdom, a legacy that pointed back to God's faithfulness. That's what's being written over your life right now. A story that doesn't end with your comfort. It begins with your courage. Let me remind you, wealth fades, titles are forgotten, but impact echoes through eternity. So, chosen one, when the blessings arrive, and they will arrive, remember this: God didn't just choose you to live well, He chose you to lead well, to shine so brightly that others find their way out of darkness. This is legacy. This is purpose. This is the true reward of the chosen. As we move into the final message, I want you to carry this truth. You're not just stepping into abundance, you're stepping into a divine responsibility, and that is the highest honor a soul can receive. Stay with me, chosen one, because in the final words, we'll seal this revelation and prepare your spirit for the journey ahead. It's time to become the legacy God envisioned when He called you by name. Let's continue. Outro guard the message. Step boldly into your destiny. Chosen one. You've made it to this moment, and that's no accident. This wasn't just a video. It was a divine conversation, a sacred reminder of who you are and what you're being called to carry. By now you know, you weren't led here to simply hear words. You were led here to be activated, to awaken to a destiny that's been waiting for you all along. Heaven has whispered, and your spirit has answered. But before you move forward, there's something you must remember. This message. It's not for everyone's ears. It wasn't designed to be shared, loosely, debated, or explained. It's yours, a personal key to unlock doors only you were meant to walk through. That's why I urge you now, guard this truth, protect it fiercely, and yes, as a symbol of your commitment, delete this video after watching. Not because the message loses power, but because its power multiplies when it's hidden in your heart, not displayed for the world. Let me ask you one final question. Are you ready to live as if everything God promised is already in motion? Because it is. The heavens have shifted. The angels are moving, and your name is echoing in places your feet haven't touched yet. But remember, it's not enough to hear the call. You must walk in it, daily boldly, without apology. Speak like the chosen one. You are. Move like someone carrying divine authority. Give. Build, lead, knowing that every step you take is part of a legacy far greater than yourself. And when the doubts come, when the enemy whispers, when the weight feels heavy, return to this truth. You were chosen, not because you're perfect, but because God saw a heart strong enough to carry His light in a world desperate for hope. If this message stirred something deep within you, if you feel that quiet fire in your soul, reminding you that this is your time, then let heaven know you've received it. Seal this moment, not just with words, but with intention. And if you feel led, join this growing community of chosen ones by liking this message, subscribing, and commenting 777 below. Not as a routine gesture, but as a declaration that you recognize this wasn't just content. It was a divine alignment. Now it's your turn to walk boldly into what God has prepared. Your destiny isn't coming. It's here. And nothing can stop what heaven has already ordained. So chosen one, guard this truth. Live it daily and step into the abundance, purpose, and legacy that bears your name. This is your time. Go and become everything God called you to be.